Mhm.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marina Clavijo, and I am part of the organizers of the Finance and Money Reading Group. And we are very happy because today we have Professor Jan Toporowski. He's going to help us to clarify and understand better what Schumpeter was saying in his chapter. So the idea is that with this session, we are going to close this cycle of studying Schumpeter. So I want to thank especially Jan for this, because for us was amazing the propositions, the books that he had recommended to us. So this is like the perfect gathering of theories and questionings that we were having. So thank you for this. And now I'm going to introduce Professor Jan Toporowski. So Jan Toporowski is a professor of economics and finance at SOAS University of London. He has worked in fund management, international banking, and central banking, and as a consultant to multilateral development agencies. And I think this is great because not many economists have this background in finance, which I think is very important to develop financial theories and monetary theories. He has also published widely on financial and monetary economics. His latest book, Interest and Capital, The Monetary Economics of Michal Kalecki, was published by Oxford University Press in 2022. And he recently published his working paper in INET named Monetary Policy and Illiquidity. So thank you, Jan, for joining us. And now you want to say something before we start with your presentation?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that generous introduction. Let me just see what I can find. Whether I can find my.
I have yours. I have it yours. So I'm gonna share my.
No, hold on. Yeah, no. Let me see where my. Oh no, I've got them here. Okay, that's excellent. I think I've got them up. Let me start sharing again.
So I propose to sorry, there is someone with thank you. So I wanted to propose that you do your presentation about the chapter, and then we can start asking questions.
Yeah.
Is that good for you?
Yeah. Can you hold on? But let me try and find this slide. Oh. No, because these no, hold on, let me.
Do you want me to share your presentation, because I have it here ready?
Yes, please, because it's not, I've pulled it up.
So if you want, stop sharing your screen and I will share mine.
Yeah, okay. Yes, if you could
Okay.
if you could share yours. I don't know why it won't come up, but okay.
Okay.
it's just that I have, oh, here we are.
Here is your presentation.
Okay. This is, would I be able to move it?
I think I will have to do it.
Okay. Um, so, yes, let me just start off by saying that Schumpeter on money is he's an extremely complex figure. It's very, very clear from the uh, book, uh, The History of Economic Analysis, that he has read everything about money. And yet we get to this chapter at the end, just as monetary economics is getting, very, very exciting. And the whole thing is um, really, um, ends up as being what one might call one damn theory after another. One he puts forward someone's view, then someone else's view, then someone else's view, interspersed with various caustic remarks about economists, which this is Schumpeter after all. And it was only after I had put together that reading list that I realized I started looking for a particular quote from Schumpeter, and uh, uh, actually I found it. The one that I wanted was not in that chapter which I had recommended, but in an earlier chapter on money. So if we could have the next slide, Marina. This is a Schumpeter in his earlier chapter, where he's writing about how monetary economics moved from this obsession with the with the gold standard, and with what is it that's so special about gold, and what is happening as gold is being sidelined in exchange, and various other types of money are being introduced. So he's taking, in this earlier chapter on money and credit, a historical approach, and arguing that yes, there's a shift from metallic money. John Law, in the early part of the 18th century, says that it's not necessary for money to be metallic in order to function as money. John Law becomes one of the first advocates of paper money and then credit. And Schumpeter is considering this historical approach, and why it is that by the 19th century, all economists start, by the middle of the 19th century, economists are starting to look at money from the point of view of the properties of money, scarcity, divisibility, so on and so forth, and then talking about the functions of money as a medium of exchange, store of value, and so on. But they're really thinking of it in terms of how it is that gold satisfies these, and then these other substitutes for gold start appearing. And Schumpeter challenges this. He challenges it with this statement that it's by no means clear that the most useful method of analysis is to start from coins. Even if making a concession to realism, we add inconvertible government paper. By government paper, he meant not government bonds, but paper money sanctioned by the government, and that the way to proceed with this is to start with metallic money and then proceed to the credit transactions of reality. Let's move to the next slide. It may be more useful to start from these and in the first place to look upon capitalist finance as a clearing system that cancels claims and debts and carries forward the differences so that money payments in the form of what is sanctioned as money, come in as a special case, as one special case without any particularly fundamental importance. What Schumpeter had in mind with this was the practice that the Berlin clearing banks had adopted by the turn of the 20th century, by the 1900s, in which they the clearing banks would meet periodically. Each bank would confront the other bank with all the claims that its customers had on the other bank. The other bank would then deduct all the claims that it had against the first bank, and the balance wouldn't even be paid. It would simply be carried forward to the following day. Now, what's the importance of this? Well, the importance of this is that it's a pure credit system. There is no money that changes hands as a counterpart to the payments that people are making using their bank credit. And Schumpeter, in a somewhat limp way, says, there's practically and analytically, a credit theory of money is possibly preferable to a monetary theory of credit. This is on page 717 of the History of Economic Analysis, the Allen and Unwin edition that Perry had in his hand just before, just as we were talking before the start. Okay, let's see the next slide. So what Schumpeter did in this chapter is distinguished between a commodity theory of money, where something like something metallic operates as a medium of exchange, and this is an old tradition. This is what you get taught in introductory monetary economics, that if you have money, you don't need to find someone else who wants whatever you're producing in exchange for what they're producing. The double coincidence of wants doesn't matter. You've got this wonderful invention, money, and it works. It works perfectly. And then if you're sophisticated and you go into the history of of money and banking, you have this idea that, of course, there were these medieval goldsmiths in Italy who would take in gold deposits and issue receipts, and those receipts were the first kind of paper money, and that's essentially a monetary theory of credit, in which someone depositing money has can create a loan because the bank will lend out the money and the money that's deposited with it. So you have the concept of the credit multiplier. The credit multiplier, which is the essence of a monetary theory. Schumpeter went further than this and argued that no, we were dealing with something different than if I pay if I pay so many banknotes, $100 worth of banknotes into my bank account, then the bank can lend out $90 and has to keep $10 in the till just in case I want to make payments. No, this kind of money deposits create loans. Is what Schumpeter called a monetary theory of credit. A credit theory of money is where bank credit is used as a means of payment. And in that case, you have something different. You have a situation where loans create deposits. Yes, can we have the next slide? In this, Schumpeter picked up from Wicksell. Wicksell had written about a pure credit economy, had argued that it was possible to have a pure credit economy. In other words, one where bank reserves no longer constrain credit, but in a sense, bank credit is trusted and can be used as means of payment. Hartley Withers, the editor of The Economist in the early part of the last century, of the 20th century, was the first person who put forward this idea that loans create deposits. The reason why banks have deposits is not because people like us come and or companies pay banknotes into their account, because hardly anyone does this anymore. The reason why banks have deposits is that their customers receive payments, income, or in the course of exchange transactions. They receive payments, and behind those payments are loans that banks create. Loans create deposits. This was a concept which was widely known by the 1930s. Withers's idea was taken up by Dennis Robertson, and it was then taken up by Keynes. It appears in the treatise on money, but it's a radical change in the type of money that is being used, in particular because it means that the rate of interest no longer depends on some concept of scarcity of money, exemplified in the fact that we have a limited amount of saving or savings, and therefore, if I want to borrow from a bank, I'm borrowing someone's saving. There's a limited amount, amount of deposits in the bank, and therefore you can it has to have a price, and the price that we pay is the rate of interest. As Victoria Chick explained in some of her articles, in particular the one on the evolution of banking, banks can always adjust their reserves to make up or whatever amount of loans they want to give. In this sense, money, bank credit is endogenous. But of course, this kind of pure credit idea disappeared actually soon after Schumpeter had written the history of economic analysis. Monetary economics is taken over by Milton Friedman, and for Milton Friedman, it was always deposits that created loans. Under Milton Friedman, the credit multiplier becomes an essential to the ideas of banking and how banking works. So, is there another slide? I have a now. Why did Schumpeter not make more of this? And he could have done. I think the reason was that, as Joe Mitchell very nicely put it in his review of Schumpeter's treatise on money, Schumpeter was committed to Walras, and the kind of Walras's idea of general equilibrium. Equilibrium in what Keynes called in one of his early drafts for the general theory a cooperative economy. In other words, an economy of specialist producers who, because they're specialists, they're all producing stuff which largely they themselves don't want to consume. So they have to exchange it, and therefore, in order to exchange it, they need some medium of exchange. And one of those produced commodities is then money. So in Walras, one of the commodities is established as a numeraire for the equations of supply and demand of all other produced commodities. So money can be one of those produced commodities. So bizarrely, I mean, I say bizarrely because Schumpeter was clearly aware that commodity theories of money was something primitive in theoretical terms. For Walras's general equilibrium is underpinned by a commodity theory of money. It wasn't just that, but in his Walras actually admitted that he had in this general equilibrium, it was possible to get unemployment and gluts, but these in Walras's system was corresponded to an excess demand for this money commodity, and you find this is an interpretation which Oscar Lange put forward in his critique of Say's law. Oscar Lange argued that look, here's Walras with the general equilibrium, but hey, we can fit into it a concept of Keynes's liquidity preference, which would appear as this excess demand for money, and the corresponding to this would be a glut of goods produced, and this is the reason why we get unemployment. So yes, is there another slide? Okay, then let me just finish off by saying something about Minsky's view on Schumpeter. Minsky's view on Schumpeter, very important because Minsky studied with Schumpeter, did his PhD with Schumpeter. His PhD, Minsky's PhD was a critique of the standard neoclassical business cycle, neoclassical theory of the business cycle, which Schumpeter had argued. But he somewhere Minsky observed that Schumpeter's response to the Great Depression was banal, and Minsky contrasted this with Keynes's response to the general theory. In the case of Keynes, Keynes had written the treatise on money immediately immediately after the great crash, putting forward a concept of a monetary business cycle from which maybe the American economy and the world economy would recover. And when the world economy didn't recover, Keynes thought through his position all over again, and came up with a completely different monetary theory in the general theory. What did Schumpeter do? Schumpeter wrote a much more massive book, which came out in 1939, Business Cycles, and essentially it's exhaustive. It goes through all the theories of the business cycles. It goes through all the theories of economic theories of why economies end up in having getting into a depression, getting into jamming themselves into an unemployment, a mass unemployment equilibrium. And his response, which Minsky dubbed banal, was that essentially the reason why the 1930s depression was so long and so deep was because it coincided with Kitchen, Juggler, and Kondratiev downturns. These are essentially downturns in the stock building cycle. The cycle according to which businesses build up stocks when interest rates are low, and then run them down, and that these cause short-term, very short period business cycles. The investment cycle, which according to which investment, it tends to be bunched up, and during an economic boom, you have a somewhat longer business cycle upturn, and then a downturn, and then this Kondratiev cycle, which he associated with new technology and fundamental shifts in breakthrough technologies, which have knock-on effects on investment. So essentially, he said that it's this statistical phenomenon, and I guess where Minsky would have been most outraged was that Schumpeter embraced a kind of a liquidationist view. Schumpeter criticized the New Deal. He argued that it was the New Deal, by attempting to regulate the economy, by attempting to regulate prices, to stop deflation, to stop prices falling, that Schumpeter, that the New Deal was in fact preventing the economic recovery, which was but round the corner and would only occur if only the government stopped interfering with natural market forces. So it's very much this kind of Austrian view, adopted also by Hayek, and associated at the time. It was referred to as the liquidationist view. So I guess this is what Minsky had in mind. But in a sense, it shows how, it shows how Minsky could throw off profound insights, but when added up, faced with something like the Great Depression, Schumpeter was just didn't make it and didn't cut it. And starting off with some profound insights into monetary theory, he lost it and ends up with this kind of statistical analysis of the Great Depression, which is not really it's money doesn't appear there. It's not really important. The rate of interest affects the restocking cycle, but apart from this, nothing much. So I'll stop there and let's have a further discussion.
Thank you very much, Jan. I have some questions that you have already clarified a little bit. Thank you for putting in context what Schumpeter was saying, and all this information we have, the economies that we don't know and we don't have access to, that you always integrate in the developing of the theory. So that is amazing, and it's something that I really like from you. So if there are questions, we can start with the session with questions. I don't know if someone has any question. Oh, go ahead, Barry.
I was going to listen, but I'm so enthusiastic about this. I can't keep myself silent. So let me first align myself with everything that has been said. In particular, the Schumpeter's notion that this big debate between the medalists and the chartalists is sort of beside the point, because the issue is that is because both of those lead to a monetary theory of credit, and we don't want a monetary theory of credit. We want a credit theory of money, and if money only comes in, at the end, it doesn't really matter for your theory. Let it be gold, let it be. So I think that's right. Okay. And that what we need is a monetary theory of credit. And I read Schumpeter when I was a graduate student, like so many of you, And that particular passage that Jan is quoting, became my mantra. Okay, and is in fact the title of my thesis. Toward a credit theory of money. So I decided to go to the dark side a long, long time ago. Okay, and I've been doing it ever since. And so the question does arise: why is monetary theory of credit so persistent and so attractive, apparently? And we can ask this about Schumpeter, because as Jan was saying, Schumpeter himself embraced Walras, which is a monetary theory of credit. So what's all that about? Why does he do that? And of course, other people did too. Many people interpreted the general theory as a kind of general equilibrium kind of model, and Marshak, at the time, at the very same time, his is proposing basically the Walrasian framework for doing macroeconomic analysis. So there's this, and Hicks is embracing Walras. Everyone is embracing Walras, in the 30s, in the late 30s. And the consequence is that they lose the ability to think about money properly. So it is interesting, Schumpeter, he's writing this book in 1954, and what Jan is pointing out is he also embraced Walras, even though he knew better. He knew better. The treatise on money is before all of this. So I ask, as a sort of question of intellectual, maybe biography, why did he remain silent? He knew better. He knew better. And I don't have an answer to that. But I have another little piece of the puzzle, which I maybe ask. This is my question now. So first of all, I was just summarizing. One of the things that's puzzling in my edition here, he talks about the banking school versus the currency school. And he specifically says that there's just not that much at stake in the banking school versus the currency school. It's overdone, that Fullerton's reflux is people exaggerate it too much and so forth. And I find this puzzling, because this seems to me about the difference between the banking school and the currency school is kind of a proto version of the difference between a credit theory of money and a monetary theory of credit. So it seems to me that he should be making that link, and he does not make that link. So I think he is maybe burnt by the debate between the way the banking school versus currency school debate is happening in the United States, and he thinks it's been a waste of time or energy or something, and so he's trying to deflect and use Walras as a way of shifting the conversation. I don't know, but it's very puzzling to me. So it's not just a puzzle that he adopts Walras, but it's a puzzle that he does not explore more the banking school versus currency school. And I don't know, Jan, if you had any insights into why is that? Because I, of course, say banking school is about elasticity, the currency school is about discipline. And so you need both of these things, to make a monetary system work. And one is about flux, one is about reflux, maybe. But he doesn't explore any of that. And he knew all of this stuff before in the treatise. So, but he chose not to build on it. And it is puzzling to me.
Yeah, I would say that he wasn't the only person who was fascinated by Walras at that time, because let's not forget the other, the kind of the third revolution that occurred at that time, in which both Schumpeter and Keynes tried to participate, was the formalist revolution. And for the formalists, Walras, for formalists like Oscar Lange, the Walrasian general equilibrium was the prototype of how economics should be. Economics should be about stating how a general equilibrium should be. There were these discussions about dynamics and dynamic versus static equilibrium, yes, this Keynes, Leontiev criticized Keynes for for essentially putting forward a static theory as a solution to a dynamic problem. So I think it's possibly in that context that Walras becomes like Edgeworth important because he formalizes something which in the case of banking and credit and monetary money really doesn't lend itself very much to formalism. I think maybe this was the case. I mean, certainly Schumpeter and Keynes were were members of the Econometric Society, and were hugely in favor, despite formalism, despite what what Keynes thought of Tinbergen. But it was maybe it was that, but it was something that still hung over through into Tobin's time. I mean, Tobin's theories. It's essentially general equilibrium is Tobin's criticism of Minsky. Why can't Minsky do general equilibrium? Kind of thing. But I mean, this is only a partial answer. I mean, I don't know that that literature so well, and I don't. And actually, certainly in England, in the English discussion, actually, I'm not sure that Walras had such an impact, maybe as he did on in continental on continental thinking.
I have my question is related to, I don't know if Barry, you have another question, but I have the same
No,
question.
I just wanted to thank you. Thank you. This is really very fascinating. Thank you very much. I think that's right, by the way. I think the formalist piece, I think that's important. I want to think about that. It's not that Walras was attractive to people also who wanted to do economic planning, right?
Yeah.
So there was a kind of a, yeah. So they needed to have a formalism in order to do that, and they bought into wrong monetary theory in order to get something else that they wanted.
Yeah.
And we've been suffering from it ever since.
Mm.
So my question is actually related to that, because I didn't understand clearly if he was supporting monetary theory of credit or credit theory of money. And actually he had he's saying, I'm quoting what he's saying about Walras, and he's saying he recognized, Walras recognized the only in the case of banknotes, the fact that banks create means of payment, or as he put it, that banks can lend to entrepreneurs without borrowing the same amount from capitalists, but he disapproved it. So I think maybe they were thinking the answer, I don't know if this is the answer, but Walras didn't want to see the way actually the banking system was working, lending without savings. And he was just omitting that because he was not approving this way of functioning. So I don't know if with this quotes he's saying, he's meaning that just because it's not something that was supposed to happen, should be part of the theory. So that is my question. If with this quote, he's just saying that even though this is happening, this shouldn't be happened. And that's why it's not part of his development of monetary theory, no? So I don't know if that's my first question.
I really, the thing is, I think that Schumpeter was aware of. Certainly, Schumpeter was aware of banking and how practical banking occurred, because, of course, he had been a director of a bank, and didn't saw saw the inside of credit operations. So that, I think, he understood quite well. The only thing I can think of is that in continental banking, European banking, was very much influenced by the French ideas of credit mobilier. They were aware that a credit mobilier was this trend in banking which developed in France in the 1840s, 1850s, in which banks actually went out to find projects which they could finance. Bankers did this, and inevitably they would lend money to entrepreneurs. They would find entrepreneurs and lend money to them for investment projects, and in particular investment projects which would benefit. The obvious thing to do was to lend the money to build something which would be produced by another customer of the bank. So all you're doing is you're transferring credit between accounts. And Schumpeter, I think, must have been aware of all this, because this sort of credit mobilier had developed in France and spread to Germany and Italy, and later on Japan. In Britain, but it had kind of faded out by the time of the First World War. In Britain, there was a different type of endogeneity which was going on, which was the idea of lending on security. And it was lending on security, in particular financial security, that made it easy for banks and secure for banks to lend. I think it's these kinds of practices which were behind these concepts that we take for granted of a pure credit economy, because I think certainly Britain and then the United States had this clear obsession with staying on the gold standard, and didn't have so much this kind of freer development of credit that came with credit mobilier. Credit mobilier really depended on the central bank, on central bank discount facilities, rather than maintaining strict reserves. In other words, the central bank willingness to provide reserves. But I think the way this kind of banking practice influenced Schumpeter's idea, I really don't know. I think that the other person would have been Wicksell, because Wicksell was hugely influential on Austrian theories.
Guillermo, do you want to ask your questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, I have a quick question. Well, a couple of quick questions. Thank you, Marina, and thank you, Jan. It was fascinating, your talk. My two questions. The first one relates to the originality in Schumpeter's credit theory of money, because my concern is to what extent is really Schumpeter borrowing from Wicksell? Where can we draw the line between the contributions of Schumpeter and Wicksell? Because my impression is that maybe not too much. And at some point, even Schumpeter says that Wicksell is like, he has this credit theory of money, but in the bottom line is that Wicksell doesn't really depart from having a certain notion of this monetary or Walrasian influence. That will be my first question. And my second, very quickly, about Wicksell. What's your take on Wicksell credit theory of money? Do you think really it is a profound theory of credit money? Because in the end, he also has this distinction between money rates, the money rate of interest and the real rate of interest. And the real rate of interest is determined by these supposedly real factors. And that would be my questions. Thank you very much. It was very insightful.
Yeah, I mean, you on that last question, I think certainly on the rate of interest, this is a problem for Schumpeter with the credit theory of money, because if there isn't scarcity of money, scarcity of reserves, then where does this money rate of interest come from? In Austrian monetary theory, in the monetary theory of people like Hayek and Babak, they saw bank credit as being a substitute for savings and saving, and thought of and they therefore associated bank credit with a certain type of excess, which caused overinvestment and subsequently depression. I think Schumpeter went beyond this, certainly in that passage, but I don't know. The real problem is that it leaves the rate of interest undetermined, and I think this is where Keynes took over, and Keynes was able to provide a solution. On Schumpeter and Wicksell, Schumpeter would have read Wicksell when the German edition of his of Interest and Prices came out, and I think in the 1890s. So it was he was there much earlier, much before the English writers like Robertson and Keynes got on to Wicksell, although Wicksell was eventually translated into English. And I think Wicksell, but Wicksell's Wicksell hinted at this idea of a pure credit economy, but he didn't. He had no way of saying, well, how would this work with this monetary rate of interest? So it's not it doesn't provide a solution, unfortunately. Doesn't provide a solution to these. Wicksell didn't provide a solution. And as I say, Schumpeter never took it forward. Yeah.
Jay? Jay had a question. I don't know if he.
Yes. Yeah, I also posted the section, the screenshot of the section I would like to reference, just to get your sense of this, Jan. Thanks so much. Great conversation. I learned a lot, and it really helped clarify a lot of things. Let me just quickly share my screen so we can take a look at this passage together.
Oh yeah.
Let me see if I can do this. Now I'll read it for everybody. I'm not sure if you can follow along. So this is from the section, and of course he has a high opinion of Walras. Let me just quickly read it. First, by far the greatest of those performances was that of Walras, in the same sense in which it is true to say that he created economic statics, the modern theory of economic equilibrium. It is also true to say that he created the modern theory of money. Big statement. And here it comes to the point. In fact, his theory of money and credit is simply part of this general theory of economic equilibrium. He therefore substantially fulfilled the great desideratum which has been so much stressed during the last 20 years, namely that the analysis of money should be built into the system of general theory instead of being developed independently and plastered upon it. So for me, this was a great way. This stuck greatly with me, this analysis of Walras. So I just would like to sort of maybe unpack a bit more. Maybe you can give us more context. What exactly is he talking about here? And for me, this is a really important statement. I can 100% subscribe to the statement. Maybe while we're at it, I don't think we have to focus on this, but I think here Keynes is also quite interesting. It's merely a special case of a generally the general theory is just a special case of the general theory of Walras. So maybe you can comment a little bit of what's going on with him and Keynes, because sometimes it feels a bit unfair towards Keynes what he's saying. Perhaps you can give some context. Yeah, that's what I wanted to point out for the group.
Yeah, that's lovely, Jay. I mean, you found the passage. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, in terms of what the passage actually, so I think the fact that money should not be independently studied to the general system.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great insight. And I think his quibs with everybody else is exactly that. I think we've heard with your conversation with Perry in your previous presentation. Walras doesn't necessarily provide 100% the right theory for this. So I see a disconnect between the two. The statement which I subscribed to, but what you said about Walras earlier was also a bit of a different take. But what's your opinion here of this passage here?
Yeah, I mean there are all sorts of passages which are extremely valuable. There's one somewhere around the original one that I put up where he says that you introduce money right at the starting point of the analysis, and I think that this is absolutely correct. And that's that's the passage that's been used by critics of, let's say, the neoclassical synthesis or mainstream economics, where money is either it doesn't exist or it's added in as a separate section. and you know, as it is in most textbooks, well, you can't do this. It's the point about you know, the way the economy works is that it's essentially a monetary economy, and you and to talk in to say that, you know, there's a real economy, and then we can add this monetary section which then tells you the price level. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. But I think he had you know, Schumpeter had genuine insight, but linking it, I think linking it to Walras was a mistake. The advantage of the link with Wicksell was that there was an automatic link to the business cycle, and then and underlying it is the concept that you need to approach the economy from a business cycle point of view. Why a business cycle point of view? Well, because as he says in, I think, his is it Theory of Economic Development, or his book on methodology, where he argues that the purpose of economic analysis is not to find the solution to a static position, but it's to find out what it is about today's activity that makes everyone get up tomorrow and repeat or modify their behavior in the following day, so that you have it's a dynamic process, and money has a part to play in this dynamic process, rather than just in as a subsystem of some kind of general equilibrium.
Is anyone having another question? I have one if no one else has
Okay.
a question. Claudio, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I have two questions. One is about the natural rate of Wicksell, and the question is, what is the relation between the natural rate and the monetary rate? Is it possible? Because Schumpeter talk about well, Wicksell, and then the other current of thought where they work with the monetary rate. So if this is possible to contextualize this relation. And the other question is about the quantity theory of money, because Schumpeter introduces in this chapter the Fisher equation. And I think the quantity theory of money is to be considered inside the monetary theory of credit. But the question is it possible also to apply it in a framework of the credit theory of money? And do you think that it's still applied today, this theory, for example, by central banks? Because I suspect that, well, I don't know, maybe also in the context of a credit theory of money, it is applicable, and, well, I don't know. I just ask. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The relationship between the money rate of interest and the natural rate is really something that has you know a long history. I mean, one could one it just as you could the history of monetary economics is interesting. The history of theories of the rate of interest is also interesting, and the way in which the um, the classical view, the 19th century view, going right up through, maybe even Keynes, it was the idea that somehow the money rate of interest uh, is uh, is arbitraged. The way markets work is that the money rate of interest is arbitraged through real production, so that if the natural rate of interest is higher than the money rate of interest, there will be a boom. Now, this is this is not always the case, and it was certainly rejected by I would say the economist I know best. It was certainly rejected by Kaletsky, but and Keynes worried about, there were arguments about which particular rate of interest, but it certainly appears in um, uh, in Wicksell as being the and then appears again in with new neoclassical synthesis in recent times has been quite the relationship between the natural rate of interest and the money rate of interest. But where the natural rate of interest comes from is it's a kind of it's speculative, and it tends to be retrospectively decided on the quantity theory of money and the credit, whether it applies in the credit theory of money. Well, it did it did I think it's a sort of hangover in monetary economics. It was already by the 20th century there were economists that were well, there were always economists that disputed it, but and people who adhered to it were going to greater and greater lengths to somehow to justify it. And one thinks of, let's say, Hayek and the theory of forced saving, and the later on, Milton Friedman and the idea that it somehow affects, it works through expectations. And so on. I think it certainly my friends of mine that I know in central banking are still believe in it, and they I'm not sure why, but it just seems natural to be natural to central bankers. I know very few central bankers who don't believe in it, but they tend to be the more thought. No, actually, there are thoughtful ones who believe in the quantity theory of money. It's a blind spot for central bankers.
Thank you, Jan. Barry, your turn.
Well, I don't want to take over your little seminar here because this is your group. But again, I'm provoked by and stimulated by this conversation. I was thinking some more about this question of why Schumpeter went down this road, and remembering that basically the banking system collapsed in the Depression, and then again in World War II. It was a state-run system. War finance is a state-run system. So he's had 20 years really. By 1954, when he's publishing this book, that the banking system that he knew, in the 20s is basically gone. So it's not clear what the institutional, he doesn't know that what's going to happen is that it's going to all come back again, but it's going to take a while, of development of private banking and globalization of banking and shadow banking. He doesn't see that future. So he may have been loath to speak about a world that no longer existed. So that's one idea. The second idea, this discussion about money rate versus the real rate, Vixel and so forth. This of course is in fact they often said it's bank rate. So the idea is that the money rate is something that is a policy rate, okay, that's determined by the central bank. So in order for this to be proper economics, in my view, okay, you have to have some theory about where does the money rate come from if there is no central bank, or if the central bank is not creating it as a policy rate, what are the determinants of the money rate of interest? And if you're thinking in aggregative terms, as Vixel is doing, you can't see settlement, you can't see clearing, you can't see that the overnight rate of interest is the price of moving that balance to the next day instead of paying in money, which you can see when you are thinking about a disaggregated individual banks, as you were referring to the Berlin, the Berlin clearing system, where you're carrying the balances to the next day, but I assume there's some charge on that. These are not free to carry the balances to the next day. And the clearinghouse is moving, is charging deficit members, and that charge is transferred to surplus members. And it may be that at the end of the year, it all is all a wash because you were a deficit agent as long as you were a surplus agent. But the notion that the short-term rate of interest comes from the binding settlement constraint, I think, is something that was not very easy to see in a world where private banking is on its back legs. They're not. It is all a world of central banks and state finance at the time that Vixel is. At the time Schumpeter is writing this, and for much of the time after he wrote the treatise on money, the world changed out from under him, and so that may be part of the story too. I don't know. Everyone was Vixelian. Patinkin grabbed this idea. The whole thing. Not Vixelian. I mean, they were Walrasian. They wanted to be doing general equilibrium, but I'll stop there.
Yeah. No, I'm. One of the things that, I mean, of course, you raise these fundamental questions, and I kind of I think that what's missing to some degree in Schumpeter is a concept of monetary concept of monetary circulation. Financial circulation, and which a number of German theorists, Neisser and others, did have and tried to develop as part of a critique of the quantity theory, but the concept of the banking system being on its last legs. Yes, but there was also in the 1930s and 1940s, an idea that the reason why the banking system collapsed was because of the Federal Reserve System. the Federal Reserve system, which turned reserve banking into as a commercial banks cooperative, so that they would find reserves, and I guess this is the reason why Simons wanted to get rid of the Federal Reserve and actually bring money back under the control of the government, make it exogenous. But I should really pick up Schumpeter's book and see what he says about Simons, because that strikes me as being fundamental. Does he mention him?
In the index, there is no Simons. Index of
Oh,
authors.
Henry Simons. Okay.
No Henry Simons in the
Wow.
author index.
Okay. And although there is, clearly Fisher appears, and the other.
Well, he may not have been keeping up. We remember that this is assembled from manuscripts that his wife put together after he died. So
Yeah,
he was, it was not ever completed as a book, and in that sense.
yeah, but I think given that they both Schumpeter and Simons shared a revulsion against the New Deal. Strange.
Yeah, so it's odd that he wouldn't find a fellow traveler. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question, and I don't want to let you go without asking you this. So this great theory of money, it's because we are used to study monetary policy only from the other side, from the monetary theory of credit. Going to the other side is kind of difficult to grasp where are the different theories here. So my question is related to the definition of pure credit economy that Wixel does, and the one that, for example, I've learned from Victoria Chick, which is different, the definition of what is a pure credit economy. And related to that is how the fables of Kaletsky, it's integrated into all this. I don't know if it's too much or if it's, but I'm trying, because for me this discussion of the other side of the monetary theory has been so obscured until I've been studying a little bit with you about that it's amazing that we don't know more about it, no? So so those are my questions. The first one, the difference between the pure credit economy definition of Chick's versus Wixel's definition, and Kaletsky fable. It's kind of related to this, no? Or I'm not taking it well.
Yeah, this for those that don't know about it, the Kaletsky fable is the story about someone who leaves money on deposit in an inn. The innkeeper takes the money, uses it to pay off a debt. The person to someone who uses the same banknote to pay off another debt somewhere else, and the money ends up back with the back with the innkeeper in time to be returned to the original owner, who actually burns it because he says it's forged anyway, it's fraudulent anyway. So but in the meantime, everyone's everyone's debts have been paid off in the village, and you know they're more than happy, and in a sense it points to somewhere where monetary theory went after after Keynes, and I get and possibly related to this question of the pure credit economy, that in the hands of someone like Richard Sayers in Britain. Sayers tremendously important because of his writings on banking history and on banking practice, but also the main architect of the Radcliffe Report on monetary policy in Britain, in which one of the important features of it is the casting of doubt on the whole concept of money and the idea of a monetary aggregate. Why? Because there are so many substitutes for money. There's quasi money. There's near money. There's monies that are used in certain markets, and monies that are not used in other markets. And in a sense, one can see the monetarist project as being as having this aim to wheel back into monetary economics a concept of what is definitely money. Now we have the leftover of this in all these different definitions of monetary aggregates, and the way central bankers went through all these definitions during the monetarist period in the 1980s, trying to find the one that they could control and somehow make the quantity theory or make monetarism work, but they didn't manage it. And somewhere in that, I think one of the reasons why they failed has to do with this concept, not just of monetary endogeneity, but the way in which kind of in a pure credit economy, no one actually has control over it. And certainly not the central bank. And that's and in its essential definition, in Hartley Withers' definition, where loans create deposits, quite clearly it's commercial banks that determine the money, and not the central bank. Sorry, I took you rather around the place, but I think this is an important message. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are on time to leave this conversation, this discussion that was amazing, and I want to thank you for all your insights and your knowledge to share it with such a generosity. So thank you. I don't know if anyone wants to say something. Perry, please do so.
Perry, I think. Perry had something. Now, can I just say that for me, it's not just a great pleasure to see the students and Marina in particular again, but they also to I'm impressed that Perry is here, and the kind of I think the scholarship that you brought to these discussions has been in many respects exemplary. So I look forward to not just to more discussions with the students, but also with you. Thanks for coming, Perry.
Well, I was glad when Jay told me this was happening. I remembered you came to my little talk about Badgett, and you gave me the reference in Schumpeter, where Schumpeter talks about Badgett for my paper, which is coming out in the European Journal eventually. So
Excellent.
I thought, well, that was the beginning of a conversation. I should continue this conversation. So that was an opportunity that not to be missed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we'll continue. We'll continue. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. It was a great pleasure. And the next book that we want to read, we haven't discussed that. I think we can do it in the chat that we have, the WhatsApp group. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jan, again. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Marina, for inviting me. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.